G'day, I'm Matt from Matt's Sharpening Services. I run a workshop in Victoria where I sharpen all sorts of items, from knives to garden tools to scissors to clipper blades, saw blades and everything in between. These are a series of videos which I'm putting together to help give people a bit of an insight to what I do here in the workshop and some of the techniques that I use for people who are curious. The videos are also about helping people who may want to sharpen their own items at home, and I'm also creating the videos to help people that may be interested in starting their own sharpening business, and I hope in the journey I can provide some tips and advice on what to do, what not to do about some of those steps that need to be taken if it's something you might be interested in doing as a side hustle or as a full-time venture. As the title of the video says, I'm going to talk about how to be the best sharpener, because anyone can, become a sharpener. Doesn't mean that you're any good at it, and you can do a lot of damage along the way, and you can ruin your reputation by not sort of following some key fundamentals. But I think to have longevity in this game, and I've been sharpening for a trade as well as for interest and as a hobby for over 20 years. But to have longevity, if you're going to be sharpening for other people, you need to be able to know what you're doing, but also you need to think outside the box to become the best sharpener. And today I'm going to talk about and run through one of the items I get, which I have seen, I see quite regularly, and it's this is it. It's a special blade for cutting open plaster bags. So you're not going to find an instrument off the shelf, a machine that is going to sharpen this, that is designed specifically for this. So it's about thinking outside the box and trying to find a machine, a technique, and a way to be able to sharpen items like these, which are obscure, which you wouldn't usually see, which sets you out from other sharpeners who might not think outside the box and be able to sharpen items like this. And that also comes down to the equipment that you use, and I come back to this machine, which has been such an awesome bit of gear that I built hybrid out of other machines, which I'll show you shortly how I made it into a versatile bit of equipment to sharpen a whole range of items which you couldn't buy a machine off the shelf to be able to do such tasks. So let's have a look. So if we have a look at this blade a bit closely, it's a single bevel blade where the back is completely flat. There's no beveled angle, and that beveled angle's only on this side. And look, we don't know what that angle is, but we know if we follow the basic principles where we're going to create a burr, remove a burr, and we're going to take it to a particular grit to finish, and that we can stick to the configuration, this sort of triangle sawtooth shape, as well as maintaining that pitch for the bevel, we're going to get the job done. So first up, we'll give it a bit of a clean up. We'll show you how to do that. So what we're going to do to remove some of this crud on the back of it, I'm going to use one of these Scotch-Brite belts, and I've got the red is a medium grit. This is a 1x30" Scotch-Brite belt. Red is the medium, and this browny colour is more of the coarse. Now this red one is a bit clogged, a bit worn, and I think we need to use this coarser belt. We're going to run the belt going away from us. It's really important that we do edge trailing, so the abrasive's going away rather than edge leading. So not at a great speed, but need to make sure that the belt is going the opposite way. And with this particular VFD, you can variable frequency drive is what it's called, to control this electric brushless motor. you can alternate which direction that belt goes. Yep, we're throwing a belt. Well, this is what it's about. You can see that that belt is, that stuff's pretty caked on. So what I'm going to do, this is about thinking outside the box, I'm going to try something else. Rightio, this is another awesome bit of kit which has got me out of a lot of trouble. It's 6 amp hour right angle die grinder, cordless, variable speed. You can get these Scotch lock pads for it. Again, you can get the 3M Scotch variety. Here I've got the brown one, which is the most abrasive in the Scotch Bright series. You can get them in a 2-inch, and you can get these in the larger ones as well. These are 3-inch. Yeah. But for the smaller surface areas, we'll use the smaller disc. For the larger discs. These are really good for cleaning up garden tools like the hedge shears, hedge trimmers, secateurs, and the Scotch Bright is really good for not taking off too much material on the inside of the surface area of single beveled items like your secateurs or your hedge shears, because if you alter that internal surface on garden tools, then you can ultimately wreck them. But I think I've got some garden tools coming in this week, so I will hopefully get an opportunity to run through sharpening those. All right, so let's try and take some of this crud off. That's pretty good. Let's have a look. So yeah, you can see here that's done a cracking job, and that was really worn, that Scotch Bright pad. I could have put a new one on, would have done a lot quicker, but that's all we need. It doesn't need to look like brand new or an oil painting, but that's just, you know, it just cleans it up and gives us a good opportunity to start putting a decent edge on it. Now, it's really important when you do, this is the larger wheel, when you do use one of these devices, a wheel, or you use it like a heavy abrasive, that you don't roll off the edge and you round that apex. You need to remember that needs to be completely flat at all times. All right, we're going to set the machine up to sharpen this up. So this is a bit of the trick shot when I talk about thinking outside the box on how to sharpen it. So I've worked out with this machine that when sharpening those blades, I've got a better feel when I have it mounted in a vertical way. So this machine was originally designed to be mounted vertically, but what I've done, I've mounted it on this board, as you can see here, and this is the result. So in order to get it back to that vertical configuration, all I've done is just got a block of wood. I've just mounted it to the bench, and I have got one of these Ryobi versatile vices, they're an awesome bit of kit. I've found so many uses for it, and yeah, I've used it to mount this machine as so. Also, you can get these they're a guide which are designed for these machines, so I'll set this up. This will help me maintain the angle when I freehand sharpen it, because the rod setup which I had over there is now redundant, and we'll be going and using this guide here. So before we sort of hook in and start and grinding away, we need to find out what angle we need to grind on. So what I've done here, I've used the red Sharpie because the red does a better job of highlighting a scratch pattern. So I've marked that edge with the red Sharpie, and now I'm going to take it over to the machine and find out what pitch I need to have that guide at. Rightio. Importantly to note, I've reversed the belt, so now the belt is going away, like so. Rightio, I'm pretty happy with that. That's sort of, you know, it doesn't need to be completely, that's pretty much it. So I'm happy with that. I'm going to mask up, put my PPE on. It's really important. You don't want to get any of this grinding dust. Whatever you're sharpening, you do not want to get it in your lungs, because, yeah, it's no good for you. I'll just explain what I've done there. So I've gone from edge trailing, which is good, you know, no right or wrong way, but edge trailing where the belt was going away, that was pulling the material, was pulling the blade away, and if I continually have to sort of fight it back from being dragged down, and that was modifying my angle, and you know, I need this bevel to be completely flat to create a nice clean apex to this edge here. So I've opted for the edge trailing, edge leading, so this abrasive goes in towards the material. I'm starting off with a 60 grit Cubitron ceramic belt. I find them really good, especially for, well, they only make them up to 120, but that's what I use them up to 120, and then I'll change to a Trizact belt, and then we'll deburr. have a look here, I've done the first pass with the 60 grit, and I've taken, it's all fresh material. Oh, I missed one there, I've got to go redo that one. But you'll see, you know, that's pretty good. A bit more of a touch up here and there. Bugger all, but we've created a burr on each of those peaks. What I'll do, I'll clean that up, and then I won't stop from here. I'm going to go from 60, I think a 120 I've got there, belt, maybe an 80. I probably won't take it any further than the 240 on the Trizact belts, grit that is, maybe a 360, and then I'll deburr. But I think you get the picture. So I'm happy with that. I'll show you the under camera. So we've created a burr. You know, it's pretty consistent all the way. It's like a 240 grit. You still want it. You still wanted to have it. You don't want. You know, I could take it up to 2000 grit, but we don't want that. We still want it to be a little bit toothy. So we still want to have the edge like with some teeth on it, because that teeth helps with the sawing action, what needs to occur in this particular application. So it all depends. Again, what means becoming, you know, the best sharpener, you need to understand the final edge, what the final edge needs to be depending on the application of the cutting implement. So what we're going to do now, we are going to deburr. So we're going to use, I'll start with a felt belt, and I'm going to be running the belt the opposite way, because we don't want edge leading with a deburring process, especially with the felt belt, because you'll just cut things to shreds. But if that doesn't work, then I'll show you some other techniques. You'll see me try different if the burr isn't fine enough to be removed just with the felt belt. Rightio, so pardon the sound, I'll reverse the belt. We're going to remove that knife guard, so I mustn't have that that angle guide on there last time. So this is where, yeah, I'm going to freehand, but it's okay to freehand when you're sort of deburring. It's a lot more forgiving than it is if you were to be putting a bevel edge on it freehand. I'll just show you how as we progress. You see that burr that's there? We're starting to get that off. That's what we want to remove, so take a bit of work, but we'll get there eventually. This is all that wire burr, which sometimes can be stubborn. It does come off easier the finer the grit you go, however sometimes you don't want to go too fine, like in this case. Rightio, that'll do it I think. We'll just clean her up, we'll have a look. So yeah, I use this green rouge, I think it's like 30,000 micron cutting ability, don't quote me on that. This is the triple B stuff. It's not all created equal, I believe. Like I think this is better than the Josco stuff that you'll get at Bunnings. I get it from a supplier over in Western Australia. There's some Chinese varieties out there. It does have the same chromium in it, however, the yeah, the waxy material, they bind it. They used to bind it, it doesn't have as good as finish as what this product. I found this Green Rouge brand. Oh, there you go, Umera, Shizin. Yeah, this stuff here, I find this the best. To clean it up, I find white spirits, and I just use these bottles you can get off Amazon. Does the best at cleaning off that residue. Methylated spirits doesn't seem to do as good a job. You need to be really careful when you clean it, because yeah, this is where you'll cut yourself. All right, let's have a look. Rightio, there we have it. I don't know if the camera does it any justice. Look, for what it is, that does an outstanding job. I've done this multiple times. Old mates wrap to them, you know, and they don't need to cut paper, but they do, as you can see. So and they're just, yeah. When he was doing them, when the gentleman client was sharpening these himself, he was getting bugger all life out of them. They weren't lasting that long. Now I sharpen 2 sets of these. Maybe I see him once every 6 months. So there you go. They're good to go back, and we'll change them over with the next set. So I hope you've enjoyed today's video, and I hope it's given you and helped you, given you a bit of an understanding of what you need to do to become a good sharpener and take it to the next level of being the best sharpener. You need to think outside the box. You need to be creative with the equipment that you use, modifying it, trying different techniques, jigs, apparatuses. Get creative with making these different tools, because if you're able to, you know, service clients with all different kinds of items, then, you know, puts you in a better position than just the good sharpener that is sticking to the run-of-the-mill equipment that's available off the shelf, that they're using just the standard tools that they're out there. And I guarantee that they're not going to do as good a job as you, because if you're thinking in that way of outside of the box, then you're going to be in a better position. If you want to support me, or you would like to get me to sharpen any of your equipment, then check out my website and you get to know a bit more about the services I provide. Its web link is australiasharpening.com.au or scissorsandclippers.au. I will leave those web links down in the comments below, and feel free to leave any questions about any of the equipment you've seen here today, any of the techniques. I'd really like to hear from you. Like and subscribe, share with your friends, and I look forward to sharing more, hopefully, information that you find helpful in your endeavours to become a sharpener as a business or sharpening at home. Thanks for watching.